This is a place for scientists, inventors, entrepreneurs, lawmakers, and leaders. This is Career Point University. With an IIT-based education system, we provide state-of-the-art facilities, practical learning, student development programs, training and placement programs, and a quality and career-led education. Career Point University. Get in, go far.
Constitution is not a mere law document. It is a vehicle of life, and its spirit is always the spirit of age. A warm welcome and good morning to all the present dignitaries, guests, faculty members, and dear colleagues. On behalf of Career Point University and School of Legal Studies and Governance, I, Agya Jain, and my co-host Vivek Rajdev, students of BBA and LLM. Today, we all are congregate here at the prestigious junction of the Constitution Day of India and the inauguration of the Moot Court at CP Tower campus. It's an honor and blessing that today we have among us our Honorable Chancellor Sir, Mr. Pramod Maheshwari Ji. He is a successful entrepreneur, a prodigious visionary, and a great mentor, who always guided us in every aspect of life with his experience and wisdom. We are thankful to you, sir, to take time from your rest-day schedule to grace this evening. We also welcome our Pro-Vice Chancellor, sir, Dr. Gurudatta Kakkar Ji, Registrar, sir, Mr. Kamal Arora, sir, Dean, School of Legal Studies and Governance, Dr. Neeti Naval ma'am, and on the behalf of Career Point University, Kota, I would like to welcome our esteemed guest, Advocate Mr. Manoj Gautam, sir, President, Bar Association, Kota. Sir have vast experience in the field of legal practices with more than 18 years of expertise in advocacy at Rajasthan High Court, majorly dealing in the field of Civil, Motor Vehicle Act and Banking Acts. Now, our second esteemed guest is respected Mr. Prakhar Gupta, sir, Advocate at Rajasthan High Court. He has completed his graduation from the National Academy of Legal Studies and Research from Hyderabad. He has participated in various moot court competitions and holds several mooting laurels. He has also participated in the International Maritime Law Arbitration Moot at NUS Singapore. Light is a symbol of brightness and prosperity. To make this gathering more enlightened and a blessed one, invoke Goddess Saraswati by the lighting of the lamp of knowledge and wisdom. For seeking the choicest blessings for the same, I invite our admirable Chancellor Sir, Pro-Vice Chancellor Sir, and our esteemed guest for lamp lighting. I also invite all the dignitaries for to present the bouquet to our guest of honor, Mr. Prakhar Gupta, sir. And now, I would like to call Ms. Rita Saxena ma'am, Head of Art and Humanities Department, to present bouquet to our Honorable Chancellor, sir. Constitution Day or Samvidhan Divas is also known as National Law Day. It is to be celebrated in India on every 26th of November to commemorate the adoption of the Constitution of India. To enhance our knowledge more about our Indian Constitution, I request my co-anchor to address the same.
Good morning, everybody. Constitution Day is a matter of national pride for all the Indians, and as a citizen of India, we must all be aware of our Indian Constitution. And 26 November generates that awareness in us. The Government of India declared 26 November as Constitution Day on 19 November 2015 by a Gazette notification. The Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, made the declaration on 11 October 2015 while laying the foundation stone of the Honorable B.R. Ambedkar's Statue of Equality Memorial in Mumbai. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar is one of the persons who chaired the drafting committee of the Constituent Assembly and played a pivotal role in the drafting of the Constitution. And previously, this day was celebrated as the National Law Day, and 26 November was chosen to spread thought and ideas of Dr. Ambedkar throughout the nation. This day is celebrated to honor Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who is also recognized as the father of Indian Constitution. We all know that India is the world's largest democracy, and with this, it also is the longest written constitution, with summing up about 1,45,000 words in it, which is the largest among any sovereign state in the world. And the Constitution of India came on force on 26 January 1950, and it took about 2 years, 11 months and 18 days to complete the entire drafting process of the Indian Constitution. Let's talk about the importance of the Constitution. The importance of the Indian Constitution lies in the fact that it enables the countrymen to enjoy freedom of rights, speech, to choose its government, and equality in all aspects, irrespective of their caste, creed, religion, social, and economical status. And the Constitution is the fundamental law of our India, as it includes 3 sets of provisions which can arguably be described as the very heart of the Constitution. And these are the articles dealing with fundamental rights of the citizen, directive principles of the state policies, and the fundamental duties of Indian citizens. The Constitution declares India to be a sovereign, socialist, secular, and a democratic republic. It aims at securing justice, liberty, equality to all the citizens and to maintain the integrity of nation.
Thank you so much, Vivek. It makes our knowledge more enhanced. Now, I would like to invite respected Registrar Sir, Career Point University, to read out the preamble of the Constitution of India, and I request the present here to stand up and do the same and repeat after the sir. Please stand here.
We the people of India,
we the people of India,
having solemnly resolved
to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and to secure all its citizens justice, social, economic,
and political
liberty of thought,
expression,
belief,
faith
and worship,
equality of
status,
and of opportunity,
and
to promote among them all fraternity assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November, 1949, do hereby adopt, enact, give to ourselves this Constitution.
Thank you, sir. I request you all to kindly be seated. Now, I request Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir for a few words of wisdom to the gathering. Please, sir.
Honorable Chancellor Sir, respected guest, and my respected friend, Manoj Gautam Sir, Akhar Gupta Sir, Dean Ma'am, faculties and students. सबसे पहले आपको संविधान दिवस की बहुत बधाई और शुभकामनाएं। आपको इस चीज की भी बधाई कि एक नया नोट कोड अब आपके लिए आपकी प्रैक्टिस के लिए अवेलेबल रहेगा। और मैं जब भी स्टूडेंट से इंटरेक्ट करता हूँ, एक चीज मैं हमेशा बोलता हूँ कि डॉक्टर्स और एडवोकेट्स ये ऐसे दो प्रोफेशन है जहाँ प्रोफेशनल बन ही नहीं पाते। हम प्रैक्टिशनर हैं, हम रोज प्रैक्टिस करते हैं, रोज नई चीजों को देखते हैं, समझते हैं, और हर बार उनके डायमेंशंस बदल जाते हैं, कनोटेशंस बदल जाते हैं, एक्सप्लेनेशंस बदल जाते हैं। यहाँ तक कि हम अपने ही लॉ के अंदर एक लॉ पढ़ते हैं, इंटरप्रिटेशन ऑफ लॉ, जिसके अंदर हम बार बार अपने ही लॉ को इंटरप्रेट करते हैं, और सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने अपने ही लॉ को कई बार इंटरप्रेट किया है। तो मुझे पूरी उम्मीद है कि इसका पूरा फायदा आप लोग लोगे और जो इंटरप्रिटेशन है वो नेक्स्ट लेवल तक जाएगा। कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन पे अगर हम बात करें, जैसा बताया कि 2 साल 11 महीने 17 दिन का एक लंबा समय इसके अंदर लगा, और उसके बाद 18 दिन और 17 दिन कई बार आपको अलग अलग देखने को मिलेगा। कभी कभी 26 नवंबर को इंक्लूड कर लेते हैं और कभी कभी हटा देते हैं। तो कुछ जगह पे आपको 17 दिन मिलेगा, कुछ जगह पे आपको 18 दिन मिलेगा। लेकिन इतने लंबे समय के अंदर जब चर्चाएं हुई संविधान के प्रारूप पे और 2000 से ज्यादा अमेंडमेंट इसके अंदर फाइनल करने के पहले ही ला दिए गए, तब जाके ये जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है वो आज की फॉर्म में हमारे सामने आया है। और इसे हम कहीं पर भी ये नहीं माने कि दिस इज बुक फॉर एडवोकेट्स। ये हम सबके लिए एक दिस इज फॉर एवरी सिटीजन, हर नागरिक के लिए संविधान है। और इसी कारण से अब ये जो एक परिपाटी शुरू हुई है कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन डे पे हम प्रीएम्बल को प्रोनाउंस करते हैं, उसका एक बड़ा अच्छा तरीका यही होगा कि हम ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोगों को ज्यादा आसान भाषा में कानून के साथ में एक्वाइट कर पाए, जोड़ पाए, उनको समझा पाए। संविधान को समझने के पहले अपने को ये भी समझ लेना जरूरी है कि संविधान ऐसा नहीं हुआ कि एक दिन में अचानक आपको अचानक मिल गया, और इसके लिए बहुत लंबा प्रोसेस था जो कि इंक्लूड हुआ। कभी कभी इतिहास में कुछ कालखंड होते हैं जो कि बहुत महत्वपूर्ण होते हैं, और हमारे लिए ये एक वो समय था जबकि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एग्जिस्टेंस में आया। लेकिन अगर हम इसकी शुरुआत देखें तो शुरुआत 1857 जिसे अंग्रेज विद्रोह कहते हैं और हम क्रांति कहते हैं के साथ में हुआ, और 1857 के बाद में 1858 के अंदर पहली बार कंपनी का शासन खत्म हुआ और ब्रिटिश रूल स्टार्ट हुआ, और पहली बार गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट आया। तो कानून की शुरुआत पहली बार हिंदुस्तान के अंदर 1858 से। हम क्या बल्कि कोई भी देश जो कि ज्यादातर रूल बाय ब्रिटिशर्स थे, कभी सोच ही नहीं सकते थे कि आजाद होंगे या हमारा कोई कानून होगा। हम जब भी बात करते थे, मैक्सिमम जो बात करते थे वो ऑटोनॉमी की बात करते थे, इंडिया और इंडिया के अलावा दूसरे देश में। लेकिन 1905 के अंदर एक बड़ी घटना हुई कि चाइना का रिवॉल्यूशन हुआ, और उसके बाद में पहली बार ऐसा हुआ कि लगा कि नहीं, हिंदुस्तानियों को कुछ कानून देना जरूरी है। और पहली बार पार्लियामेंटरी रिफॉर्म्स के नाम से 1909 के अंदर एक कानून आपके सामने आया, जिसके अंदर देखा जाए तो वो ब्रिटिशर्स के लिए ज्यादा था, हिंदुस्तानी के लिए कम था, लेकिन शुरुआत हुई। और उसके बाद में मॉडर्न चेम्सफोर्ड 1919 में गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट के नाम से, और उसके साथ में हमें लगा कि हाँ कुछ कानून हमारे लिए हिंदुस्तानियों के लिए आए हैं। लेकिन अगर 1919 से 1929 का अगर आप समय देखेंगे तो ये एक ऐसा समय है जब अचानक ये 10 साल का वक्फा जो है, 10 साल का जो पीरियड जो है, ये ऐसा समय है जब अचानक एक बड़ा परिवर्तन आया। 1928 तक 1927 तक भारत की सारी पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज ऑटोनॉमी की बात कर रही थी, और उसके बाद में फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर के बाद में पहली बार ऐसा हुआ कि हमें लगा कि हम अपनी कंडीशंस को डिक्टेट कर सकते हैं। और लाहौर में रावी नदी के किनारे पे इंडियन नेशनल कांग्रेस का जो अधिवेशन हुआ, और उसमें 31 दिसंबर को उन्होंने पहली बार स्वराज के लिए उन्होंने कहा कि हम स्वराज का रेजोल्यूशन पास करते हैं। ये अलग बात है कि लाहौर के जिस जगह पर रेजोल्यूशन पास किया गया पहली बार स्वराज का, पंडित जवाहरलाल नेहरू ने उसे वहां पढ़ा, उस जगह पर आज मीनार पाकिस्तान है। और उसके बाद में 1935 के साथ में गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट आया और उसके बाद ये लग गया था कि अब आपको जो कुछ भी है वो इसी के ऊपर बेस करके करना है। अगर आप आज के बाद के कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को भी जब हमने जो एक्सेप्ट किया, अडॉप्ट किया, उसको भी अगर आप देखेंगे तो 75% गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट 1935 की ही है। लेकिन ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट था कि संविधान सभा का गठन हुआ, 300 से ज्यादा सदस्य, उसके अंदर फिर वापस एक चैलेंज था कि किनको आप इलेक्ट करोगे, किनको इलेक्ट करोगे। फिर उसके अंदर 92 जो मेंबर्स थे वो रियासतों से लिए गए, 200 समथिंग जो मेंबर्स थे वो ब्रिटिश प्रोविंसेस से लिए गए, और फिर उसके बाद में संविधान सभा का गठन हुआ। उन्होंने अपना काम शुरू किया और 2 साल 11 महीने पूरा अपना समय देके, और उसके बाद में इसको हमने आज के दिन हमने उसको अडॉप्ट किया और इम्प्लीमेंट हमने 26 जनवरी को। तो ये एक इम्पोर्टेंट है। तो ये मेरा मानना ये है कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को समझना जरूरी है, उसको सिर्फ एक किताब की तरह ना देखें, उसको एक जनरल गाइडलाइन की तरह ना देखें, उसको डूज एंड डोंट्स की तरह ना देखें, उसको एडवोकेट्स बुक की तरह ना देखें, बल्कि एक जरूरी किताब की तरह देखें और उसको रेस्पेक्ट करें। मैं कोट करना चाह रहा हूं अब्राहम लिंकन को। अब्राहम लिंकन, अगर आपको ध्यान हो तो खुद अमेरिका के ही कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के सबसे बड़े क्रिटिक थे, वो सबसे बड़े आलोचक थे। जिस तरह से अमेरिका का कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन लिखा गया, जिस तरह से उन्होंने उसको बनाया, लेकिन उन्होंने उसके अंदर एक बड़ा अच्छा कोटेशन दिया जो मुझे बड़ा पसंद है। I will to the best of my ability preserve, protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. It is not the Constitution as I would like to have. It is not the Constitution as I would like to have it, but as it is, that is to be defended. The Constitution will not be preserved, defended until it is enforced and obeyed in every part of every one of the United States. It must be so respected, obeyed, enforced and defended, and let the grass grow where it may. So in this manner, हमें ये समझना चाहिए कि हमें उसको डिफेंड करना है, हमें उसको रेस्पेक्ट करना है, हमें उसको ओबे करना है, और हम उसके कुछ एक प्रोविजन से सहमत हो सकते हैं, कुछ चीजों पर हम सोच सकते हैं कि कुछ कमियां रह गई होगी उनकी इतने लंबे, क्योंकि देखा जाए तो कमियां नहीं है, क्योंकि इतने लंबे टाइम के बाद भी बहुत कम अमेंडमेंट हुए हैं कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में। तो इस कारण से, और जबकि देखा जाए तो अगर आप हमारे साथ के बाद के कॉन्स्टिट्यूशंस को देखोगे दूसरे देशों के, तो पूरे बदल गए, हमें जरूरत नहीं पड़ी। तो वो एक चीज है, तो हमें उसका ध्यान रखना चाहिए। ऐसे इस टाइम पे मैं कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन डे पे मैं हमेशा श्री प्रेम बिहारी रायजादा को हमेशा एक बार बोलना चाहता हूँ उनका नाम, क्योंकि हमारा संविधान लिखित संविधान है और इसको पहली बार पेन से लिखने का काम उन्होंने किया, उन्होंने इसको उतारा, उन्होंने बकायदा पेन से हैंड रिटन उसको पहली प्रति है जो कि पार्लियामेंट में अवेलेबल है हीलियम बॉक्स में, वो उन्होंने अपने हाथ से लिखी। इसलिए मैं उनका नाम भी जरूर लेना चाह रहा था कि वो हमें याद रहना चाहिए कि उन्होंने कितनी मेहनत के साथ में उसको लिखा है। कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन डे में, संविधान दिवस पे आप सबको बहुत बधाई, बहुत शुभकामनाएं, और आपको नए बोर्ड को भी बहुत बधाई। मुझे पूरी उम्मीद है कि स्टूडेंट्स यहाँ पर दिखेंगे और इसको यूज करेंगे। थैंक यू फॉर कॉलिंग।
Thank you, sir, for your valuable words and awareness regarding the historical background of our Indian Constitution. Now I request our Honorable Chancellor, sir, Mr. Pramod Maheshwari ji, to express his gratitude to us. Please.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
Respected Advocate Manoj Bhatanji. Prakhar has been my student, so I call him Prakhar, so it's Advocate Prakhar now. I've seen him from his childhood, perhaps from his nursery class, or maybe lower than that. My dear students, Pro Vice Chancellor, staff of the School of Legal Studies. I am extremely happy to see this moot court. Let me start with this, because it has been kind of, efforts and intent to have a very good moot court where you can practice and can sharpen your skills, because what you learn inside the class is text. पढ़ लेते हैं आप, but what you learn while you do these kinds of practice is skill. So text only will not suffice the purpose of learning anything unless otherwise you practice it. You have to practice it. And that's extremely important, because when you are in the professional world, textbooks or text always helps, but your skills takes you to the next level. If you don't have those skills, you won't be able to perform irrespective of how good you are in the text knowledge. And that's why you should do a lot of practice, whenever you get an opportunity. And as a part of, as an effort or as a goal of Career Point University, I believe more in learning beyond classroom than learning inside the classroom. That's always been my, thrust area. Because when I see you guys, I am able to recall my time when I was in college. Fortunately, I was in IIT, and people say that inside IIT, perhaps, पढ़ाया बहुत अच्छा जाता होगा, इसलिए अच्छा पढ़ लेते हैं लोग. There are few faculty members are very good as student grade. Like you must be rating your faculty members also. यार ये पकाते हैं, ये अच्छा करते हैं, तो बेकार है. अरे class तो bunk करो. I don't want to go in this class. All those kinds of things used to happen with us also. It happens with everyone. आपके जो पढ़ाने वाले faculty member हैं, आपके जो professors, उनके साथ भी होता है when they are in college. They are also used to think the same way. So I used to think the same way, and many times, approximately 30-40% classes, in a particular year, I used to bunk, not to go inside classes. But what I learned in IIT is skills beyond classroom. I was very active student and participating in various activities, be it curricular activities, be it academic activities. Even though I was not too much inclined to academics while I was in IIT, but I was very active. I used to participate very actively even in academic activities also. The academic activities which actually kind of research activities. So there used to be a event called TRIST, which happens in the month of February every year in IIT Delhi, and where scholars come, present their research papers, have a lot of discussions on various research topics, new technologies. And I was very active in that. If I didn't get any chance to present my paper, I participate as an organizer, as a volunteer. कि चलो कुछ करते हैं. Because when you interact with the people who are doing something, you learn a lot. So learning happens everywhere. Whether it is by participating in curricular activities, by participating in social activities, by participating in some other kind of fun activity, or by participating in academic activity. Everywhere there is a learning, and that's what the goal. That's what actually sharpened my skill when I graduated. And I realized later on that I learned a lot outside the classroom, and that's called skills. And that's why you should utilize these 4 years, 5 years which you are spending in the college and the university to sharpen your skill, because you won't get this opportunity again once you are graduated from the university. Nobody will give you a chance. अगर आप अच्छे lawyer नहीं हैं, तो आपके पास कोई आएगा नहीं. बोलेगा आप तो कैसे हार जाओगे, आप कैसे रिलाई करोगे? Right? Nobody will come to you with a trust, because वो कोई आपको चांस नहीं दे सकता. चाहे लॉयर है, चाहे डॉक्टर है, चाहे चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट, उसको चांस नहीं देगा कोई भी क्लाइंट. तो उसकी तो जान फंसी हुई है. बहुत बढ़िया आपको आगे चांस देगा कि सर आप कभी एक्सपेरिमेंट कर लीजिए, देख लेंगे, कोई बात नहीं. अभी तो क्या है, यही है, सेशन कोर्ट में ऊपर चले जाएंगे, थोड़ा ऊपर लड़ लेंगे. अभी तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट तक है. वो तो बोलेगा साहब जो करना है नतीजा निकाल के मेरे फेवर में लेके आओ. अच्छा है बुरा वो मेरी समझ. And you being in such a fantastic profession and also such a demanding and committed profession, that you should develop your skills while you are in the university. And I believe this moot court will help you to develop those skills, which will help you to go beyond, go along with you while you actually enter into the professional world. So I congratulate all the students, all the faculty members, HODs, and all my colleagues in the university for having such a fantastic mood court. बस ताला लगा के रखना इस पे यार कि आज इनोवेशन कर दिया और फिर बाद में पता पड़ा कि इस पे तो ताला लगा रहता है. And whenever we come in this mood court any day, तो हाथ लगाते हैं मिट्टी आती है. मिट्टी नहीं लगनी चाहिए. Right? That's my expectation with this mood court. Conduct as many practice sessions as you can. Invite people from the different area of the society. Organize mood court competitions. Let's have the national mood court competition in Kota. Let's do it. जितना अपने आप को एक्सपोज करेंगे, जितना अपन स्ट्राइव करेंगे, उतना अच्छा होगा. बढ़ते जाओ, करते जाओ. आप कर भी रहे हो, करते जाओ. So I congratulate all for this. And I don't have too many things to share, but I've been interacting with various lawyers on a daily basis, specifically on the commercial side, because government notice बहुत देती है. रोजाना नोटिस की जरूरत पड़ती है. नोटिस ही बहुत आता है. कभी अच्छे नोटिस आते हैं, कभी बुरे आते हैं, बट जवाब सबका देना पड़ता है. तो I feel कि there is a and the way the law is being, as we are growing economy, law in itself is going to be a fantastic profession in time to come. Even today it is very good, but in time to come it is going to be very, very, very strong profession. Because no business, I am telling from the commercial side, so I am not saying from the criminal side. मेरा तो background है नहीं, मैं समझा नहीं सकता कि वहाँ दिक्कतें क्या आती होंगी, है ना. पर तो commercial side से मैं आपको बता सकता हूँ कि इतनी ज़्यादा ज़रूरत पड़ती कि मैं आपको बता नहीं सकता. Almost, every third or fourth day you get a notice and you require support of a competent lawyer to draft your reply. Even the reply, forget about it. तो contest होएगा तो बात नहीं होगा. अब तो reply के लिए जरूरत पड़ती है. And that's what if you practice, learn, then perhaps you will not only able to get the justice to people who been suffered due to wrong interpretation of the constitution, but will also grow in your professional career. I wish you all the best, and thank you very much for inviting me today morning. I am extremely happy to see all these things. Thank you. Please,
As we know that the School of Legal Studies and Governance now has the mood court at CPTAR, which brings more bliss in the life of our students and also for the activities of legal studies, and which will enhance the knowledge of our students, and it will bring more confidence at the life of ourselves. Now, I would like to call our Chancellor Sir, Mr. Pramod Maheshwari ji, to present the memento to our esteemed guest, Advocate Manoj Gautam.
Thank you so much. Very thank you.
And our Dean, No, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to call our Dean, School of Legal Studies and Governance, Dr. Neetu Naval ma'am, for delivering the vote of thanks to the Cabinet. Please, ma'am.
A very good morning to our dignified guest, President of Kota Bar Association, Advocate Manoj Gautam sir, Rajasthan High Court Advocate Mr. Prakhar Gupta sir, Honorable Chancellor of Career Point University Pramod sir, Pro Vice Chancellor, respected Gurudat Kakkar sir, respected Kamal Arora sir, and respected all faculty members, all my colleagues, Honorable HOD Kunal Rovila sir, Shailesh ma'am, Mithilesh ma'am, and dear students. Every year, the School of Legal Studies and Governance, Career Point University celebrates Constitution Day on 26 November. This time, our Law Department is organizing a moot court activity on Constitution Day and inaugurated a modern moot court room in CP Tower. So many congratulations to all Constitution Day for Constitution Day and the inauguration of moot court at CP Tower. On this special day and moment, I would like to express my profound gratitude and regards towards respected Pramod sir for his kind permission for this event and your graceful presence. On the behalf of the School of Legal Studies and Governance, CPU, we would like to thanks to our eminent guests, Manoj Gautam sir and Prakhar Gupta sir for giving us your valuable time and accepting our invitation. My sincere thanks to Dr. Gurudhar Kakkar sir for his guidance, constant support and suggestions that are always greatest help for the Law Department. I am personally a big admirer of Kakkar sir as a great source of inspiration. We are thankful to Manish Gupta sir and his team for all their efforts to prepare moot court room in this present shape. It's all done in very short timing, and also thankful to Chandana sir for all the technical help and preparing other required things in proper manner and timely. This moot court inauguration and moot court activity could have never been possible without hard efforts of our my colleagues Kunal sir, Shailesh ma'am and Mithilesh ma'am. I am always thankful to you all for every time keeping spirit of development of Law Department. You are always welcome to innovative ideas for betterment of this Law Department. So I shall always be indebted and grateful to all of you. And at last, many thanks to all dear students. Thank you so much to all.
As it is the time to move further for our part second of this session. And now for the commencing of the rendition of the case proceedings, so I request to our esteemed guest to be chaired in the courtroom. Please, sir. Thank you, sir, for your valuable time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
As because of the paucity of time and space, we are not preparing full bench as in the Keshwar and Bharti case. Now for the briefing. Now for the briefing of the Keshwar and Bharti case, I would like to call Khushi Jain to enhance your knowledge. Over to you. For briefing of the Keshwar and Bharti case, I would like to call Khushi Jain to enhance your knowledge. Over to you.
We are representing the rendition of Keshwar and Bharti versus State of Kerala on today's auspicious day of 26 November, the Constitution Day of India. Of course, you all are thinking that in increased number of cases, why we have chosen this case. This case is unique in its own self, the most monumental decision in the history. It is the longest appellate decision with a judgment of about 700 pages. It is so much broad that because of paucity of time, we are comparing the compact part of this case. Such force in the judgment of this case that overseas country borrowed the judgment. Also, the Canadian Constitution take a glance of this judgment. In the blues of Kerala, His Holiness Swami Keshwanand Bharti, Sri Patkal Balu, was the head of the Italy in the Kerala. For the welfare of the people and for the poor people, needs the government of Kerala make the Kerala Land Reforms Act 1960 and act to enact a comprehensive legislation relating to land for agriculture and to abolish exploitation and inequalities in the agrarian sector. This affected the property of Keshwanand Bharti religious institutions. This makes him to challenge the state's legislation of Kerala. In the middle of the proceedings, Article 368 and Article 30. The petition was filed by Keswanan Bharti and the respondent was State of Kerala. 13 judges of the Supreme Court sat on the bench of this case for almost 5 months. This was the largest bench in the history that sat for the case. The 24 Amendment Act 1971, the state cannot make any law which violates the Part 3, that is, fundamental rights of the Constitution. So the Parliament contended that the amendment to the Constitution as per Article 368 should not be included in the definition of law given in Article 30. Through this case, the concept of basic structure introduced and the 24 Amendment Act came into force, in which the new clause 4 was adjoined in Article 30, in which it was described that the amendment of Parliament under Article 368 shall not be included in the definition of law, and the Parliament was given power to amend the Constitution without violating the basic structure of the Constitution. However, the basic structure is not defined in the Act, but the elucidation of the structure is analysed in the Keswanan Bharti case. Furthermore, the Supreme Court is yet to define, or we can say clarify as to what constitutes the basic structure of the Constitution. But from the various judgments, the elements of basic structure can be defined as supremacy of the Constitution, fundamental rights, rule of law, unity and integrity of the nation, parliamentary system, and so on. However, the court's most noteworthy decision, made by a lead majority of 7:6 of judges. The issues we have taken here is about, first, whether the 24th Amendment Act is constitutionally valid or not. Second, what is the extent of the amending powers conferred by Article 368 of the Constitution. So now, I want to take the permission from the Council to start the proceeding of the case.
Council proceed with the arguments.
Much obliged, Your Lordship. Your Lordship, with respect to the instant petition, the first part regarding the constitutional validity of 24th Amendment Act will be dealt by me, and the second part regarding the extent of amending powers of the Parliament conferred under Article 368 of the Indian Constitution will be dealt by my co-counsel.
Before you proceed, Council, kindly address the bench on the question. Since you are challenging the constitutional amendment itself, does it fall under Article 13(2) to be challenged before this honorable court? Whether 13(2) applies to constitutional amendment or not?
Your Lordship, yes, the constitutional amendment comes under the scope of Article 13(2).
Proceed.
Your Lordship. In the first leg of arguments, the Council wants to submit that the Parliament, by way of enacting 24th Amendment Act, has tried to nullify the Honourable Supreme Court's judgment in IC Golaknath versus State of Punjab 1967 to SCR 762, in which it was held that Parliament had no power to amend Part 3rd of the Constitution so as to abridge or take away any of the fundamental rights, and added that Article 368 merely lays the procedure of amendment. Further, the court said that amendment is a law under Article 13, Clause 2 of the Constitution, and if it violates any of the fundamental rights, it may be declared void. But with 24th Amendment Act, Parliament has sought to achieve 5 results. First, it has inserted an express provision in Article 368 to indicate that the source of amending power will be found in that article itself. Second, it has made it obligatory on the President to give his assent to any bill duly passed under that article. Third, it has substituted the word amend by way of addition, variation or repeal in place of bare concept of amendment in Article 368. Fourth, it makes explicit that when Parliament makes a constitutional amendment under Article 368, it acts in exercise of its constituent power. It has expressly provided that the bar in Article 13 against abridging or taking away any of the fundamental rights should not apply to any amendment made under Article 368. Your Lordship, by this very amendment, what Parliament tried to do is very risky thing. As we have the judgment of Golaknath case with a special bench of 11 judges where they very clearly pronounced that after reading Constitution, fundamental rights cannot be amended. But what the centre or the Parliament ended up doing, they ended up overriding the judgment itself. Here, I would like to draw your Lordship's attention to a Latin maxim, quando a liquid prohibita ex directo, which means what cannot be done directly must not be done indirectly. In the Golaknath case, the Honorable Supreme Court held that the Parliament do not possess the power to amend the fundamental rights, yet indirectly by way of bringing certain amendments, the Union and the Parliament actually ended up amending the fundamental rights. They indirectly possess what they ought not to have possessed. They have changed the fundamental nature of the things, and in this way they have disrespected the Honorable Supreme Court as well as the Holy Book of Constitution. I would also like to draw your Lordship's attention to another disturbing example of what happened to Weimar Constitution in Germany. In this case, Hitler was allowed to amend the constitution without any restrictions, and we all are very aware of what happened afterwards. That a democratic constitution was in few years converted into a totalitarian disaster, giving rise to dictatorship. So this particular writ is not just about the rights of Keswanand Bharti, but this raises a larger question. In which direction our constitution is going, and if we allow the Parliament to make certain amendments in every part of the constitution, where it might lead us to. I would also like to add that as by 24th Amendment, Parliament has given itself unlimited and unrestricted powers to amend the constitution. The preamble also needs to be protected from such unrestricted amending powers, because preamble at first place is not a part of the constitution, and the contents and nature of the preamble make itself incapable of being amended. And as our country strives to achieve what has been enunciated in the preamble and from which fundamental rights are also being recognized, it cannot be amended. Lastly, the Council wants to submit that a creature of Constitution, which the Parliament is, can only have such amending powers as is conferred by the Constitution itself. No doubt, Parliament has power to amend the Article 368, but that does not mean that Parliament could so amend Article 368 as to change its own amending powers beyond recognition. The power of amendment cannot possibly embrace the power to enlarge that very power of amendment. Now my co-counsel will take on from here on. It was a pleasure reading in front of your Lordships.
Yes. Proceed, counsel.
A very warm good morning to your Lordship. This is Counsel number 2, appearing on behalf of the petitioner. The Council seeks permission to begin with second leg of the argument.
Yes, counsel, proceed.
Fundamental rights is so fundamental in nature that it can't be amended. The framers of the Constitution always knew what fundamental rights means and why it was necessary to ensure that certain rights being so fundamental that they are allotted to each and every citizen of India, And not only did they provide such remedies, but they also ensured in case of infringement of the same, one can always approach the Honorable Supreme Court. Such is the regard given to fundamental rights. These fundamental rights owe their origin to natural rights, a right which every person possesses by reason of birth. If today they allow them to amend certain fundamental rights, what is stopping them to amend various fundamental rights which are possessed in the Constitution? This is the very reason why the Constitution makers in no way under Article 368 specify that the Part 3rd can be amended, and now under the disguise of constitutional amendment, what they want to do is to take out from the purview of law under Article 13 the word constitutional amendment itself. They just want to override the Constitution. With regards to this, Honorable C.J. Subba Rao in the Golaknath case equated fundamental rights with natural rights and characterized them as the primordial rights necessary for the development of human personality. He then raised two causes that when Parliament could not affect fundamental rights by enacting a bill in its ordinary legislative process, even unanimously, or how could it then abrogate a fundamental right with only a 2/3 of majority? Second, while article of less significance requires consent of the majority of the states, can fundamental rights be amended without such consent? After analysis of such question, CJ reached the conclusion that fundamental rights cannot be amended.
Council, can fundamental rights never be amended? Are they untouchable? Even with passage of time, does not change of time require that fundamental rights be amended to certain date, even if we do not like it? With passage of time, how do you come it?
Fundamental rights cannot be amended.
Continue.
Your Lordship, the Council would like to highlight the words of eminent jurist H.M. Serabhai that there were grave consequences to treating the Constitution as ordinary law to be changed at the will of the party in power. If governments could always be trusted, there would have been no need of fundamental rights. In light of this saying, the Council wants to submit that if the Parliament is given unlimited power to amend the provision of the Constitution, it may encroach upon the fundamental rights and thus they will lose its significance as the object of fundamental rights is to establish a government of law and not of a man. Thus, legislature by way of amendments cannot fail the purpose for which fundamental rights are being provided. Your Lordship, with regards to Article 368, the Council wants to submit that the power of the amending body under Article 368 is of limited nature. The Constitution gave the Indian citizens the basic freedom and a quality or a form of government which are meant to be lasting and permanent. Therefore, the amending power does not extend to alteration or destruction of all or any of the essential features. The Council would also like to add here that there was no definite test to find out what is essential and what is not essential. And if no precise definition could be given, that was no reason to hold that the essential feature could be amended. The appreciation of the trained judicial mind is the only way to find out what essential features are. The Council would like to bring your Lordship attention to the decision in Rana Singhe case 1965 AC 172 and Karyapar case 1968 AC 717, which are authorities for two propositions. First, that In the exercise of the quota of amendment, a controlled constitution can be converted into an uncontrolled one. Second, the word amendment means alteration. It is further submitted that constitution amendment is law within Article 13, Clause 2 and was void to the extent to which is contravened the fundamental rights. If the word law did not include a constitutional amendment, the consequences would be that the Parliament could, by requisite majority, under Article 368, as amended by it, repeal the entire chapter on fundamental rights merely by calling the law a constitutional amendment. Lastly, the Council wants to submit that if Article 368 were to be construed as giving Parliament unlimited power amendment, then Parliament can destroy the sovereign status or the democratic character of the country, abolish the judiciary, abrogate all human freedoms, and indeed thereafter repeal Article 368 itself and provide that hence the Constitution would be unamendable. Thus, that is all from my side. It was a pleasure to be in front of your Lordship.
Your counsel nearest. The counsel for response.
Good morning to all the dignitaries and everyone present here. This may it please the Honorable Court. This is Council number 1 appearing on behalf of the respondent, and we are dealing with the two issues. The first issue is dealing with the validity of 44th Amendment, which is dealt by me, and the second part deals with the extent of amending power of the Parliament under Article 368, which is dealt by my co-counsel. If the Honorable Court is well versed about the facts of the case, then Council seeks permission to begin with the arguments.
Yes, Council, begin with the arguments.
Much obliged, Your Lordship. The Council wants to submit before the Honorable Court that why it is necessary to amend the Constitution time to time. Your Lordship, the provision for amendment of Constitution is made with the view to overcome the difficulties which may encounter in future in the working of the Constitution. In the year 1950, when the Constitution came into force, it was made according to the needs of that time socio-economic condition. The Constitution gave the Indian citizen the basic freedom and a quality or a form of government which was made to be changed by the time, or whenever there will be a need to society to add a new right, the Constitution of India can be amended. Thus, the supremacy of Parliament is the basic principle of the Indian legal system, and it has power to amend the Constitution under Article 368. It was essential that the three wings of the government, legislature, judiciary, and executive harmoniously run the machinery of the government. Now, the Council wants to direct the attention of the Honorable Court towards the judgment of Golak vs. State of Punjab, 1967. Lordship, in the judgment of this case, Honorable Supreme Court imposes restriction over the amending power of the Parliament, and Parliament is considered to have no power to take away or curtail any of the fundamental rights guaranteed by the Part 3rd of the Constitution, even if it became necessary to do so for the attainment of the objectives set up in the preamble of the Constitution. Now, the Council wants to submit that if the power of Parliament will be restricted, then it won't be able to make any decision for the welfare of the society and not be able to meet the socio-economic needs of the society. The Council further wants to submit that when Parliament became unable to work according to the needs of the people of India because of these restrictions, then Parliament introduced the 24th Amendment Act to remove the doubts on the scope of the limits of amending power. It is contended on behalf of the respondent that 24th Amendment does enlarge the power of Parliament to amend the Constitution. By the 24th Amendment Act, Parliament inserted clause 4 in the Article 13 and clause 3 in the Article 368 for removing the conflict between Article 368 and Article 30.
Council, can you throw the light? What was the conflict between these two articles?
Council accept the point of the court, sir. So, Your Lordship, Article 30 says Parliament cannot make any laws which violate our fundamental rights. On the other side, Article 368 states that Parliament can amend any part of the Constitution, including fundamental rights. Your Lordship, that's why Article 368 clause 3 states that now, if the Parliament can introduce any amendment, then it will not cover in Article 368. And Article 13 clause 4 states that Article 13 will not apply on Article 368. Parliament. That's all from my side.
Yes.
May I proceed, sir?
Yes, Council.
The Council also wants to submit that Parliament also added the word power in the heading of Article 368 to make it clear that Parliament has procedure as well as power to amend the Constitution, because Article 368 clearly mentioned that Parliament may exercise its constituent power amend by way of addition, variation or repeat any provision of the Constitution. The Council further wants to submit that Article 368 clause 2 subclause E states that Parliament cannot make any amendment by itself for passing any law. It is always needed simple majority, special majority and special majority with the ratification of the state and the assent of the Parliament. Then, how it can be justified that Parliament is abusing the power of amendment? Thus, the Council humbly wants to submit that Honourable Court should be guided by the language used in the relevant articles and should not be guided by the so-called underlying or unfettered spirit thereof. The judiciary and the legislature have coextensive powers. If the former invalidate an amendment as ultra-virus, the latter has the necessary power to pass a law to meet the situation created by the judicial body. My Lordship, Council wants to submit that Article 368 had enjoyed a large and liberal interpretation till the Golaknath case decision 1967. The Supreme Court had upheld the first 17th Amendment and 24th Amendment was only to restore the Parliament power which it already possessed. The extent of amending power should not be viewed in the context of possible abuse of that power. It was wrong to assume that elected representatives of the people would abuse their unlimited legislative power. Thus, it is humbly prayed by the Council before the Honourable Supreme Court that 24th Amendment Act 1971 should be declared valid and pass any order that is deemed fit in the interest of justice, equity and good consent. That is all from my side, my Council. My co-Council will deal with the second layer of the arguments.
Yes, Council. Proceed.
May peace to the Honourable Court. This is Council number 2nd appearing on the behalf of respondent. Council seeks permission to begin with the second leg of argument.
Yes, Council. Proceed.
The Council wants to submit that the amending power conferred by Article 368 is not limited in nature. The Council wants to submit that in 1950, when the Constitution came into the fore, it was shaped by the social and economic circumstances of that time. The Constitution of India guaranteed Indian residence is an essential liberty and a government of a type of government that could receive with the passage of time and any time which is needed by the society, and it should be added a new right. The Constitution of India should be altered. As a result, Parliament sovereignty is a fundamental concept of the Indian legal system and it has right to modify the law according to Article 368 of the Indian Constitution. The Council seeks permission to direct its attention towards the case of Shankari Prasad versus Union of India AIR 1951, which was held that the Parliament has power with respect to amending the Indian Constitution is absolute, unlimited and unfettered. It has fulfilled the social economic obligations which have been guaranteed to the citizens of India. It was further held that Article 368 confers the power of Parliament to amend the Constitution. It can be exercised over all the provisions of the Constitution. The 24th Amendment was to remove some of the doubts on the scope of limit of the amending power of the Constitution. It was held in Golaknath case. The Council submits that the thumping majority secured by Congress Party in 1971 showed that the people approval had been obtained to the policy of constitutional amendment. The democratic will of the people must prevail over it. The Council further wants to submit that the power to amend the Constitution in Article 368 includes the power to amend any provision of the Constitution, including fundamental rights in Part 3. The fundamental rights are not human rights or natural rights. They are social rights and that can be changed by time to time.
Council, can you differentiate between fundamental rights, human rights and natural rights?
Your Lordship, fundamental rights are those rights which can be given in the Constitution. Natural rights are those rights which cannot pervade law, custom or any other government. In human rights is contained the basic rights which is the basic necessity of the human, and social rights which fulfill the necessity of human and it is for the human welfare.
Yes, Council.
The Council wants to submit that the Parliament can abrogate fundamental rights such as freedom of speech and expression, freedom to form an association and freedom of religion. It was held that in Shakti Prasad case versus Union of India, AIR 1951, that fundamental rights are not really fundamental rights, but they were intended within the powers of amendment in common with other parts of the Constitution and without the concurrence of the state. The word amendment must derive its color, Article 368 and the rest provisions of the Constitution. There is no doubt that it is not intended that whole Constitution can be repealed. Further, Council also wants to submit that the word Article 13, Clause 3, the word law includes any ordinance, order, bylaw, rules, regulations, custom or usage having the territory of India. So, in the definition of law, the word amendment is not included. That's why the Parliament has power to amend the Constitution as per the welfare of the society. In Sanjan Singh versus State of Rajasthan, the advocate Bachawat J held that Article 368 is not prescribe the procedure but also give the power of amendment. Article 368 gives the power of amending to each and every provisions of the Constitution. Article 13 Clause 2 is the part of Constitution is within the reach of the amending power. Article 368 is not controlled by Article 13 Clause 2 and the prohibitory injunction in Article 13 Clause 2 is not attracted against the amending power. Constitutional amendment under Article 368 is not law within the meaning of Article 13 Clause 2. So, the Council humbly prays that there should be no restriction over the Parliament of power, no restriction over the power of Parliament and pass any other order which deem fit in justice, equity and good consent. Thank you.
Any rebuttals, petitions?
Thank you so much for giving us impeccable knowledge regarding the most prestigious case of Constitution of India, the set of the landmark judgment in our law. By the words of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, law and order are the medicine of the body politic, and when the body politic gets sick, medicine must be administered. Now, I would like to call Advocate Manoj Gautam sir to express your gratitude towards us. Please, sir.
आज परिवार की तरफ से कोर्ट का गठन किया गया, जिसके उत्तर में आप सभी को कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन देखी और सुप्रीम कोर्ट के गठन का आप सबको शुभकामनाएं देता हूँ। आप सबकी जिम्मेदारी आज अब जो स्टूडेंट्स हैं, आप जो पढ़ने जा रहे हैं, आप जो करने जा रहे हैं, निश्चित रूप से आप कोई जुडिशियल सर्विस पे जाएगा, कोई एडवोकेट बनेगा या कहीं भी जाएंगे, लेकिन आज हम यहाँ जो सीखते आए हैं, संविधान से हम जो सीखते आए हैं, इसका उद्देश्य है कि समाज के अंतिम छोर पर जो व्यक्ति खड़ा हुआ है उस तक कानून पहुंचे और उसकी हम सहायता कर सके, ये हमारी नैतिक जिम्मेदारी है। प्रोफेशन अपनी जगह पे उससे हम प्रोफेशनल होंगे, हम फीस लेंगे, काम करेंगे, ये हमारा एक तरीका होगा, ये हमारा प्रोफेशन का एक पार्ट है। लेकिन समाज के प्रति भी हमारा उत्तरदायित्व है और हम सब उस उत्तरदायित्व को पूरा करेंगे। हमारे संविधान की भी यही उम्मीद है हमसे और हमारे देश भी हमसे ही चाहता है। केरल परिवार ने आज आपको साथियों के आपस आने का जो अवसर प्रदान किया, इसके लिए आप
kindly sir, present the memento to our petitioner team. Now, I would like to call Mr. Prabal Gupta sir to express few words of grace to our school.
First of all, I would like to thank everybody for inviting me over here. मेरे को पता चला कि आप लोगों के एग्जाम लास्ट वीक ही ओवर हुए हैं. It was a really short time to prepare for this really big judgment. This judgment not only changed the history and discourse of constitutional India, it changed the discourse and history of constitutional law throughout the world. Just to give you brief facts, it referred to around 71 constitutions throughout the world at that point of time when this case was discussed. If you look at the judgment itself, first 18 pages where list of cases is given. It's just some number of cases that has been referred in this. And next 10 pages are dedicated to books, treaties and everything else that was referred. Such is the magnitude of this case. So इतने बड़े टास्क को करने के लिए आप लोगों ने इतने छोटे टाइम में किया, that in itself speaks a volume आप लोगों की capability के बारे में. How much effort it must have gone in understanding and reading and rendering the same judgment. So really commendable effort to all the petitioners. अब जनरली मैंने देखा कि जो बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर है, when we talk about केशवानंद भारती केस है क्या? I was this morning discussing the same with my father. And now he is a chartered accountant by profession. When I tell him कि ये basic structure है, he wasn't able to grasp it. So I drew an analogy for him. So I would like to share the same analogy with you. एक जीनी आपके पास आया, उसने आपसे कहा आपको 3 विशेष ग्रांटेड. पहली विश मांगी कि मेरे को अनलिमिटेड विशेस दी जाए, क्या आप जीनी से ये मांग सकते हो कि मेरे को अनलिमिटेड विशेस दी जाए? या फिर आप जो मांग सकते हो उसमें कोई इनहेरेंट लिमिटेशंस हैं? This was the thing exactly which was done with the Constitution. Constitution ने आर्टिकल 368 दिया पार्लियामेंट और कहा आप कुछ भी अमेंड कर सकते हो. Now Parliament is going to amend, but where is the check? जिनी ने आप पे कोई टर्म्स कंडीशन नहीं लगाई. जिनी never imposed कि आप अनलिमिटेड विश नहीं मांग सकते. But whether can you ask for unlimited wishes? Can you amend the Constitution unlimitedly? This was the moot point in this particular case. That's why it was such a ceremonious decision. And again, I would like to draw your attention how this judgment actually saved the Indian Constitution from its possible darkest phase, which was about to be formed. But before understanding that, अपन को इसका थोड़ा प्रीक्वल भी देखना पड़ेगा कि why all those amendments were introduced. उनका बैकग्राउंड क्यों करने पड़े थे? The Indira Gandhi government had recently won the election, but सरकार जो है लगातार nationalization की केस में हार गई. In nationalization, banking nationalization, what they tried to do is कि आपका बैंक आज हम ऑक्यूपाई कर लेते हैं, आज ही खरीद लेंगे, but we will pay you 1 rupee for 100 rupees, and that too after 10 years. The same was brought before the honorable court. Honorable court ने कहा कि this is not the way. Whenever you are challenging an compensation, we have a power of judicial review. हम उसका judicial review करेंगे, and if we find that the amount is not compensatory per se, but it is like merely nominal amount, we would set aside that. Similarly, the case happened with Prithvi Purse. Now, Indira Gandhi won the election on a slogan. Garibi Hatao. When you are talking about Garibi Hatao, at that particular point of time, it must be remembered that USSR is a really strong nation. It is portraying a socialist manifesto all over. So, as soon as we say that someone has too much money, has too many properties, that is seen as an anti-socialist agenda. आप गरीबों को बांटोगे तभी तो होगा. And for the purposes of taking away from them, you are required to make all these commitments. This is a prequel in which Constitution में अब उन्हें amendment करने की जरूरत पड़ेगी. Now comes the judgment part. अब judgment में yes.
The right to property as an amendment, do you justify that?
Sir, in regards with that, I would like to instead of giving a clear answer, I will again back to refer to Keshwanand Bharati's case, because कोई भी right can never be absolute. Even if we look at the basic structure of Part 3, most of the rights in themselves are qualified. They never give you an absolute right. So even when they give you right to property, it cannot be absolute. But certain safeguards need to be adopted. That is due procedure. When I want to take away your right to property, I must give you adequate compensation for the same. मैं आपकी 100 रुपए की चीज 1 रुपए में नहीं ले सकता. अगर 100 रुपए की चीज ले रहा हूं तो I need to give you an adequate compensation. That is the core belief. So, if we look at a judgment, generally सबने अपन ने ये पढ़ा है कि judgment is 7 judges ने favor दिया basic structure को, 6 ने against दिया. But इसमें ना, if you look closely at the judgment, थोड़ा change है. So 6 judges clearly said that unlimited amending power rests with the king, and 6 judges unanimously said unlimited power does not lie. It was ultimately on the Justice Khanna who played the most pivotal role. What Justice Khanna did is he rendered opinion on both the sides. And end of the day, he comes that there needs to be seen. He was the one who said that how balance should be struck between the rule of law and the part of fundamental rights and the part of amendment. So Justice Khanna was the one who drew the balance between these. So judgment, instead of being 7:6, it can be easily said it was 6.6 ratio 6.6. That's how close the judgment was. In this regard, I would like to also say that Anam referred to H.M. Sirvai. In that regard, I would like to point out H.M. Sirvai was the lead counsel for State of Kerala. He was the one who was actually saying that we have a limited power. He was the most vocal opponent. The fight before the Supreme Court was between Nani Palkhiwala and H.M. Sirvai. So this was the most crucial fight. But the point you made that H.M. Sirvai later redacted from his own statement. If you like, I have actually quoted the H.M. Sirvai's word. It is from his book, like I have read. If the basic structure doctrine had not been laid down, the consequences would have been very great, and India would have been in danger of being converted into a police state, as the experience of emergency had clearly shown. Such was the power with this particular judgment that even the staunchest opponent of the same, 4 to 5 years down the line, said, had this decision not been there, we would have gone to a police state. Democracy would have been a joke in India. Such is the power of this particular case. So again, with this note, I would like to end my speech, and I would like to thank everyone once again for being so passionate.
Last but not the least, I would like to call Head School of Legal Studies and Governance, Mr. Kunal Rohira sir, for concluding today's gathering.
A very good afternoon to one and all. First of all, I want to congratulate on this Constitution Day that the Constitution is not given by anyone, that we the people of India give ourselves this Constitution. And I would like to appreciate the student performance, especially of the moot court team. Both of the teams in a very short time prepared themselves regarding the memorial, regarding the arguments, and they were disturbing about this and how they will prepare in the 6 days in a very short time. But they have prepared well and performed well also. And I would also like to appreciate every student work and contribution, whatever directly or indirectly, for this moot court activity. If we talk about the today's activity in the moot court, Keshwanand Bharati v. State of Kerala, a landmark judgment of the Constitution, AIR 1973, Supreme Court 1461, a rendition was or a replication of this case was done today. In this case, if we go to the original judgment, many of the legal issues was there, but as we have the limited time in this moot court and we have the limited, we cannot extend to the every issue, so we have limited this moot court, this judgment to 2 issues. The 2 issues were there, whether the 24th Amendment Act is constitutionally valid or not, and the second was that what is the extent of amending power of the Parliament conferred by Article 368 of Indian Constitution. From the petitioner team, Mantasha and team contended that the petitioner that the power of the Parliament to amend this Constitution is limited and restricted, and if it is given unlimited power of amendment, it will end up the essence of the Constitution, including the fundamental rights and the basic features. On the other side, respondent asked that the 24th Amendment should be declared constitutionally valid, because all the addition which was made in the Amendment Act clears the contradiction between the Article 13 and 360, which was the basic issue of this case. The court, and also they urged that the court should not restrict the amending power of the Parliament, and it is needed for the social welfare of the society. So by this concluding note, I want to end this session. But before ending this session, I would like to thank Mr. Manjunath sir and Mr. Prakash sir that in a very short time they has accepted our invitation and give precious time out of busy schedule. I would also like to thank Honorable Chancellor sir, Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor sir, and Dean Dr. Neetu ma'am that always their motivations and support will always with our law department is there. My special thanks to Department of Arts and Humanities that for their kind support. And last but not the least, my special thanks to my fellow faculties and students present. Thank you very much.